Ready for an adventure? Today we're heading back to ancient Mesopotamia.
Always up for a good Mesopotamian jaunt.
But, and here's the twist, we're not focusing on the ziggurats or the cuneiform. Not this time.
Oh. What's on the docket, then?
We're going deeper, way deeper. We're diving into their religious beliefs.
Intriguing. But how? What are we using as our lens?
Through their prayers. Think about it. Raw, unfiltered glimpses into how they saw the divine, the universe themselves.
Ah, those intimate whispers to the cosmos. It's like eavesdropping on their deepest fears and hopes.
Exactly. And luckily, we've got a treasure trove of sources to work with. Academic papers, translations of actual prayers, scholarly analyses. It's going to be epic.
I'm already hooked. So what kind of secrets are we hoping to unearth in this deep dive?
We're on a mission to decode those prayers.
Decipher the whispers of an ancient civilization. Sounds right up our alley.
We'll uncover how they viewed the world, how they connected with their gods, what it meant to be human in a world practically bursting with deities.
You know, it's always struck me how, even after all these millennia, the human need to connect with something bigger than ourselves, something beyond our comprehension, it persists.
It's a timeless yearning, isn't it? But let's get down to the nitty-gritty. Let's talk about the structure of these Akkadian prayers.
All right, lay it on me.
One thing that jumped out from the research was this lifted hand gesture. And it wasn't just metaphorical, they were physically reaching towards the heavens.
Yes. This gesture, often accompanied by the word shuilla. It wasn't just reaching out, though. It was about embodying humility before the divine. Picture this. You're pleading to a king.
Let me guess. I wouldn't just waltz in demanding favors.
Precisely. You'd approach with the utmost respect, a little groveling. Never hurt anyone either.
Definitely wouldn't want to ruffle any royal feathers.
Exactly. And these prayers, they were their way of navigating that delicate dance between human vulnerability and divine power, acknowledging their place, but still hoping to get a little divine intervention on their side. And that leads us to the language they use to address these gods. The research goes deep on this one. Talks about this meticulous, almost legalistic care in using the right names and titles. One wrong syllable.
Sounds like a recipe for divine disaster. But why all the fuss about getting those names right?
Because for the Mesopotamians, a god's name wasn't just a label, it was power. Raw, unadulterated power.
So it's not just about getting their attention, it's about invoking their specific area of expertise.
Exactly. Imagine needing help with, say, a legal matter. You wouldn't just shout into the void, "Help me, any lawyer." You'd seek out the one who specializes in contract law.
It's like their prayers were carefully crafted petitions to specific departments in the grand divine bureaucracy.
Now you're getting it. And this whole intricate system of names and titles, it also reflects their view of the cosmos. A realm that's meticulously structured, where each deity plays a specific, crucial role.
Speaking of the cosmos, our sources paint a fascinating picture of a world where heaven and earth weren't separate spheres, but rather deeply intertwined. What did that look like from their perspective?
Imagine a world where the gods weren't distant, unapproachable beings, but active forces shaping every facet of your existence. From a bountiful harvest to a triumphant battle, their influence was everywhere. Take Anu, for instance, the sky god, the top dog, you could say.
Okay, so he's like the Zeus of their pantheon.
A fair comparison. But then you have Enki, the god of wisdom and those primordial waters, a true master of creation and, dare I say, cunning. And who could forget Ishtar?
Ishtar. We can't forget Ishtar.
A goddess who embodies creation and destruction, love and war, even venturing into the realm of sorcery. She's a force of nature.
Wow, definitely sounds like someone you wouldn't want to get on the wrong side of. But this interconnectedness, this divine tapestry, it wasn't just about the big players, was it?
Not at all. That's where the concept of the personal god comes in.
It's like having your own personal guardian angel. Or maybe a divine life coach, but with potentially higher stakes than just forgetting to meditate.
It's a relationship that underpins their entire worldview. Imagine believing that alongside those major deities, you also had a personal god directly linked to your fate, your own advocate in the divine courtroom.
That's both incredibly comforting and utterly terrifying at the same time. Like, talk about pressure.
It's a delicate balance, that's for sure. And you see this tension, this back and forth between divine favor and wrath reflected in their prayers.
So if things were going well, you thank your personal god. But if disaster struck,
You'd be scrambling, trying to figure out where you went wrong. It's like walking on eggshells, but on a cosmic scale.
yikes. It makes you wonder, If they felt so at the mercy of these gods, why even bother praying? What was the point of trying to influence beings of such immense power?
Now, that's a question that lies at the very heart of their belief system. And it's one we'll unpack as we explore specific prayers and the stories they tell. Because within these pleas for mercy, within the hymns of praise and the desperate bargains, lies a story. A story of what it meant to be human in a world that was both awe-inspiring and utterly terrifying.
And something tells me that story is going to be full of surprises. So let's start unraveling it, shall we? One of the prayers that really resonated with me was addressed to Shamash, the sun god. Now, he's not just about sunshine and rainbows, is he?
Oh, not at all. While often associated with justice, Shamash's dominion stretches far beyond daylight hours. He also governs the mysterious realm of dreams, blurring the lines between the day and night, the seen and unseen.
So he's not just the cosmic judge, he's also the master of the subconscious. Shamash sounds like a busy guy.
He's a multitasker, for sure. And it speaks to the Mesopotamian belief in the interconnectedness of all things. The sun's journey through the underworld was seen as a nightly death and rebirth. Sound familiar?
Mirrors the cyclical nature of life and death itself.
Precisely. And since dreams were believed to hold prophetic messages, Shamash, the illuminator, held sway over these glimpses into the hidden world.
It's like their entire cosmology was built on this foundation of interwoven realities. And gods like Shamash, they held the threads.
And through their prayers, we gain access to this tapestry of belief. Suddenly, these seemingly disparate elements, the sun, justice, dreams, it all weaves together into a cohesive worldview.
And speaking of powerful figures, we can't forget Ishtar. We had this incredibly evocative hymn dedicated to her, and let me tell you, it paints quite a picture.
It really does. It highlights her complex, often contradictory nature. This isn't just some one-dimensional goddess.
Oh, definitely not.
She's revered for her beauty, her grace, but she's also feared for her unyielding wrath. Ishtar embodies the full spectrum, creation and destruction, and this duality, this inherent tension, it's at the very core of Mesopotamian belief.
So not just a pretty face, then. She's a warrior goddess, a sorceress, almost like...
Like a Mesopotamian Athena?
Yes, but with maybe a dash more, how do I put this, volatility.
A very apt comparison. And this hymn, with its rich, layered language, it offers us a glimpse into how the Mesopotamians grappled with these seemingly opposing forces. And it's not afraid to really dig into that complexity. There's this line, it describes Ishtar as the most perfect of goddesses.
Wow, high praise indeed.
Right. But then, in the very next breath, it acknowledges her capacity for both nurturing and wrath.
It's that duality, isn't it? Like, they understood that true power, real power, it's not just one thing. It's about creation and destruction all wrapped up into one, which I guess makes sense for a goddess who governs both love and war.
Exactly. It's a delicate balance, and Ishtar, well, she embodies it perfectly, but not all deities were quite so, shall we say, intense.
You're telling me some were a little more easygoing.
Let's just say a bit more approachable, like Nisaba, for example.
All right, tell me more about this approachable deity.
Imagine a goddess whose entire essence is intertwined with grain, with writing, with the very sustenance of life.
Okay, so less about throwing lightning bolts, more about, I don't know, baking the perfect loaf of bread.
You're not wrong. She's often depicted with this crown of barley, emphasizing her connection to the earth's bounty. But her significance, it goes beyond just grain.
There's more to her than meets the eye. I like it.
Oh, absolutely. Nisaba is also associated with wisdom, with literacy. She's seen as the protector of scribes, those tasked with recording knowledge, history.
Which, when you think about it, is a pretty big deal in ancient Mesopotamia. I mean, writing, it's how they tracked everything.
Yeah.
Trade, taxes, heck, even those prayers to the gods we've been talking about.
Precisely. And this leads us to a fascinating concept the research touches on. Nisaba as a net of forgiveness.
A net of forgiveness. Okay, I'm intrigued. Unpack that one for me.
It's like she represents a kind of divine diplomacy. The ability to calm even the most wrathful gods, to soothe those divine tempers.
And all it takes is a bit of grain.
Well, an offering of grain is how it's often depicted. It's as though she represents this way to appease the powers that be, using the simplest yet most essential of offerings.
It makes you wonder what a freshly baked loaf of bread could solve in today's world, right?
Right.
But I digress. This whole idea of appeasing the gods, of trying to sway their favor, it makes me think about something we touched on earlier, fate. Did the Mesopotamians believe they could actually change their destiny? Or were they just kind of stuck with whatever the gods decided?
That's a question that still keeps scholars up at night, and the answer, well, it's complicated. Like most things in ancient Mesopotamian religion, it's all about nuance. While they definitely acknowledged the power of fate, that what was meant to be would be, they also clung to this belief that they could nudge things in their favor.
So it wasn't just blind faith. It was about actively trying to live a life that would, let's say, impress the cosmic scorekeeper.
Exactly, like a cosmic report card, where good deeds earned you divine brownie points.
And I'm guessing those brownie points came in handy when fate came knocking.
You could say that. But who is keeping track of these deeds, these good and bad actions? Well, that's where Nabu comes in. He's the one with his finger on the cosmic pulse, so to speak.
Nabu. All right, let's talk about Nabu.
The god of wisdom and writing, often depicted with a stylus and a clay tablet, he was the ultimate record keeper.
Talk about a high-pressure gig. No room for errors when you're writing the story of every human life.
Tell me about it. Every action, every decision, it was all meticulously recorded. At least that's how they saw it.
Makes you think twice about those questionable life choices, doesn't it? But it also speaks volumes about the power they attributed to the written word. It wasn't just about communication. It was about literally shaping reality.
Now you're getting it. Nabu, he embodied this reverence for the written word, and his role as a scribe of destiny, it adds a whole other layer to their understanding of fate, wouldn't you say? Because, well, if a god is watching your every move, taking notes.
It kind of makes you want to be on your best behavior, just in case. But, okay, we've talked about the importance of names, the power of offerings, even the nuances of a well-structured prayer. But there's one more element that keeps popping up in the research. Cedar wood. What's the deal with cedar wood? It's not just about making their temples smell nice, right?
You'd think so, wouldn't you? But cedar wood, it was crucial for their purification rituals.
So we're not just talking air freshener here.
Not at all. Burning cedar incense, it wasn't just about the fragrance. It was about cleansing a space, driving away malevolent forces, creating a kind of sacred barrier between the ordinary world and the divine.
So like an ancient Mesopotamian version of sage smudging.
You could say that, and it's another example of that blurring of lines between the human and the divine, because just as they used cedar wood to purify their spaces, they believed the gods did too.
The gods had their own divine cleaning rituals.
Exactly. It was all about order, about separating the sacred from the profane, about making things right.
And this need for order, this desire to understand our place in the grand scheme of things, it's something that we see echoed throughout history, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. From ancient rituals to modern mindfulness practices, it's this deeply human need to make sense of the world around us, to find our place in it all. But before we get too philosophical, something's been bugging me.
What's that?
We've talked a lot about cedarwood, but the sources also mention these lavish feasts laid out for the gods. What was that about?
Oh, yeah, the divine banquets. Those were interesting. It wasn't enough to just offer up prayers and incense. They went all out. Tables piled high with bread, fruit, meat, even beer and wine.
They really knew how to throw a spread for their deities.
If you're going to dine with gods, I guess you got to do it in style. But there was a deeper meaning behind it all, right?
Well, absolutely. These weren't just about filling divine stomachs. They were about communion, about creating a shared space where humans and gods could, in a way, break bread together.
Like a giant cosmic potluck.
You could say that. It was a way to show respect, to give thanks for their blessings, maybe even score some bonus points for the future.
Always good to stay on a deity's good side, especially when they might control your fate.
Exactly. But it all circles back to that fundamental Mesopotamian belief that even though the divine and the human were separate, there was this deep, undeniable connection between them, and they weren't afraid to express that connection, to nurture it through ritual and prayer.
It's a powerful concept, this idea that through these rituals, through offerings, even through these desperate pleas, they were trying to bridge that gap between the earthly and the divine.
It's a theme that pops up again and again throughout history, wouldn't you say? Cultures all over the world searching for that connection, trying to make sense of their place in the universe. And it's interesting because as we explore these connections, we start to see how these ancient Mesopotamian beliefs, they didn't just fade away. They resonated, they echoed through time, and they even influenced later religious traditions, like the Bible, for example.
Okay, now that's what I call a plot twist. Mesopotamian beliefs influencing the Bible. Tell me everything.
Well, one of the most striking parallels is the concept of the divine assembly. You see, in Mesopotamian religion, the gods, they weren't just off doing their own thing. They gathered.
Like a divine social club. Did they have a secret handshake too?
Maybe, who knows? But
Yeah.
seriously, they had this council with Anu at the head, naturally, and they made decisions that impacted the entire world.
So picture Anu as the CEO leading the board meeting from his celestial office. Important stuff.
Exactly. And what's fascinating is this idea, this divine council, it also shows up in the Hebrew Bible.
Wait, are you saying that the writers of the Bible, that they were taking notes from ancient Mesopotamian beliefs?
It's not so much about direct copying, it's more like they were drawing from a shared wellspring of ideas, a common cultural vocabulary. Think about it. In the book of Job, you have this scene where the sons of God come to present themselves before Yahweh. Sounds familiar?
It's like that divine council we were just talking about. So Yahweh, in this scenario, he's like the chairman of the board with all the other divine beings reporting to him.
You got it. And this shared imagery, it highlights just how interconnected these ancient cultures were. Ideas were flowing back and forth, influencing, evolving. It's a fascinating web to untangle.
It really is. It's like these echoes from thousands of years ago, still resonating, still shaping our understanding of the world. But what other biblical parallels caught your eye? Did anything else in the research make you go, aha, there's a connection?
Well, we've already touched on the Mesopotamian obsession with ritual purity, all those cleansing rituals, the use of cedar wood to create sacred spaces, that emphasis on drawing a line between the sacred and the profane.
Oh, yeah, totally. It's mirrored in the Hebrew Bible, too. All those detailed instructions about washing, about what you could and couldn't eat.
Yeah.
It's like they were trying to create that same kind of separation. Like, okay, we need to purify ourselves before we even think about approaching the divine.
Exactly. The specifics, they might be different, but the core idea is the same. It's this universal need to cleanse, to purify, to prepare ourselves for an encounter with something greater than ourselves.
It's incredible when you think about it. Here we are, thousands of years later, but these ancient societies, they were grappling with some of the same fundamental questions we still ask today.
Yeah.
What is our place in all of this? What is our relationship with the divine? And how do we make sense of a world that often feels chaotic and unpredictable?
It's a testament to the enduring power of these questions. They've been with us for millennia, and they show no signs of going away anytime soon.
I guess some things never go out of style, huh? The human need to search for meaning, to connect with something bigger than ourselves. It's timeless. It makes you wonder, as we delve into these ancient texts, are we really just uncovering the past? Or are we also catching a glimpse of something essential about ourselves, something deeply human?
That's a question I'll leave for you to ponder. As you reflect on this deep dive, what resonates with you? What echoes do you find in your own beliefs, in your own search for meaning?
Beautifully put. And on that note, we'll wrap up our journey into the heart of ancient Mesopotamian religion. We explored their prayers, their rituals, their deeply held beliefs, and we discovered that even after all this time, their voices still have the power to move us, to challenge us, and to remind us that the human search for meaning, it's a journey that stretches back to the dawn of civilization. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and most importantly, keep seeking.